And because you know what's funny about it is because I'm in Canada too. Um, I would say yes. I feel like I'm part. I feel like I'm part of the greater community. It's a different way how I feel of it. I feel like I'm a part of the greater community, and I happen to be black. But I don't feel like I'm a part of the black community. If you get what I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, do you mean in the sense that you don't really interact with a lot of black people in general?
I interact with a cross section of different people.
Okay.
I mean, in work and in social activities, I do interact with a cross section of people. And I just feel like a Canadian, a Jamaican Canadian who happens to be black. I don't feel like I'm part of a black Canadian community. And why I'm saying that though is because we're different generations. I'm in my mid-40s, you guys are in your mid-20s. It almost sounds like regression, if you get what I'm saying. Because I would expect that the younger generation would feel more a part of the greater society and just happen to be, of a special hue.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what is your idea of what a black community is? Okay.
So how I'd best explain it is when I was growing up in the 80s, because I remember watching Sanford and Son, Cosby Show, all of that stuff, and I felt like there was a black community in the sense that, or there's a show you guys wouldn't even know about, Good Times, or you've never heard of a show like this. No, right?
No.
No, and even up to the point where we had Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and all of that stuff, there was a thought that there were two societies, because like my friends would be in Jamaica talking about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and what was going on in Living Color or Living Single, while other people were talking about what's going on 90210 and Melrose Place. I don't know if you know. I think they've made new shows on those, but you felt like you're in two different communities in the sense that, But right now, I'm embarrassed by it because as a 40-odd-year-old man going on TikTok, everyone is listening to the same music. They all listen to the same rap, the same 9 seconds or 12 seconds of a rap song or hip hop song. So you kind of get it's melding. I don't get people are watching different shows. I think they're watching the same shows. So I think the community is getting broader. Probably on YouTube it's different because YouTube tends to have its sectors. But in your own lives, like not family lives, because your family would look like you, right? But in your own personal life, do you find yourself having a multicultural set of friends? I'm not just talking acquaintances, friends. Or do you find yourself generally having black friends?
That's a really interesting question. I think growing up for me, I would say it was predominantly white friends because I lived in a very white area. But then going or transitioning into university and stuff, I started to become, like the world started to become a little bit more open to me. And I felt more like I could find my place it's like somewhere where I can fit in and not feel like I had to adapt or like camouflage into any type of color. I could just be myself. So I would say like now in the point of life that I am in right now, I would say that I have a multicultural set of friends. Not that I intentionally try to go out of my way to make friends with people who are in my race, people who are out of my race or anything like that. But I just think naturally just being more considerate of the person for who they are and not really what they look like on the outside just helped me like navigate friendships and not really look for appearance, but just look for who I connect with organically. And that just happens to be a variety of people. and a variety of color and culture and background. So yeah, that's what I would say for me.
And Young?
Yeah, I would say definitely similar to Free. Growing up, I was in a predominantly white area, so most of my friends were white. And I think as I've gotten older, and again, kind of going to a different school, and there was more multicultural, I found myself having more friends of color, mixture of friends, white friends and friends of color. And I just found that, you know, again, it's like, you know, I gravitate towards people based on like, you know, similar values and like, you know, enjoying one another's company. But I do think that, you know, having people of color around me has definitely, I guess, changed the way I see myself, because I think, you know, there's certain, and I guess just the way I navigate the world too, because there's certain experiences that only your friends, black friends, or even like, you know, just non-black friends, but who are people of color will experience, that, you know, your white friends may not be able to relate to just because they don't have those experiences. You know, they may try to, but it's just not the same, or, you know, they may sometimes say things that might be a bit ignorant, and, you know, it can, you know, you kind of have to have those difficult conversations when, you know, like microaggressions come up and whatnot. But yeah, I'd say that I definitely now have like a mixture of multicultural friends, which I'm really happy about. And I think it's, you know, made my life more enriched because of that.
And then, you know, and I like that, Young and Free. And what about your online intake of information? Because what I've noticed is, like, some people watch Netflix and some people go on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. I find that people who go on the social media sites sometimes are joining a community. They're not necessarily, you may start going on by saying, hey, I like these set of people, but after a while, you may find yourself a part of a community within the social media world. Do you find yourself doing that?
I don't know. That's a very thought-provoking question, because now that I think about it, I mean, I know that social media is all about algorithm, and like whatever you interact with is what will pop up on your feed. For me, sometimes I feel a little bit detached from social media, or like detached from like pop culture, like what's going on like with like the world. I more like will just interact with things that I like, and that happens to be like just like silly things, and not things that are like ever have to do with, you know, anything having to do with anything like more like people or like issues, or like I would say it's just more like carefree things, like maybe makeup or fashion or like babies or whatever it might just be. Just something that's just very you know, nothing that has any real weight to it, in the sense that it's not like heavy content. But I would say that I don't know if I have like too much experience with this, but I would say like if I'm looking at like the followers that I have or the people that I choose to follow on social media, like it's very intentional for me. I don't just follow anybody, or I don't just interact with just anything. Not only because I know that it will show up in my algorithm, but also because like if I don't care to see it, then I will not like engage with it, and then it will go away. So yeah, I think it's important to think of social media as like something that's like temporary but permanent at the same time. Like it's very important, and it can be like a way to connect with people, but at the same time, if you connect with the wrong things or things that are not like super helpful to you, then it could leave an impact on you. And either way, it's going to make an impact on you, but it's determining whether it's positive or neutral or nothing or like harmful. But I would say, like, for me, I like to interact a lot on Twitter. I don't tweet or anything like that, but like I will find myself like looking at certain trends and being in that space where like you see people tweeting about a certain thing. Even though I'm not actively tweeting about anything, I feel like I'm like sitting in a community or sitting like in a room with people who are having a conversation about things that I also think about, but even though I'm not actively like talking in it. So I would say that's probably the closest thing that I feel to like being in a community on social media. But I feel like social media could be a very like microscopic and very individual thing, which can also be quite haunting or quite intimidating for a lot of people.
Yeah, and before I go to Young, one of the things I'd say is when the pandemic happened, the power of social media became like intense.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were disconnected at that point. And it was only either your family or the people you were going to maintain close contact with and social media.
Yeah.
But now I think because we are now out and about, I think now social media is being put in its place. But what I'd want to say is, and just want to ask you a quick question, Free, before we move to Young. Have you ever gone into Twitter and commented on something, or you're more passive, just looking at something? And I'm talking either Twitter or TikTok. Have you like commented on something?
No,
I'm like
the worst person. To like, no, like when I'm on like social media, I do not talk. Like I don't leave a trail or anything like that. Like I'm just like, I'm very much an observer, even in life as well. Like I just observe. Even if I'm thinking something, like I won't say it, especially if I know like it can leave like on social media like residue, like people like bringing up back tweets being like, is this you? Like it's like tweets from like your past and people will bring it up, and even if you change as a person, but like they'll bring up things that you said in the past. Like I've always been like very careful about that, and just like very like hyper aware of that too. Just wanting to leave like a positive impact or a positive footprint, even if I'm not leaving anything much at all. Just something that's very like doesn't like shake any type of waters in a negative way. But no, I would say I'm not really much of a commenter. The only thing I will comment on is like people that I know, like people that I'm friends with, or not even like celebrities. I won't comment. Like I barely even like. I'm actually like the worst to have on social media. Yeah, but like if I know you and I know that like I know you personally, then yes, of course I will comment and I will like support and I will retweet and I will engage with your content to help boost its like engagement. But like other than that, like I'm just very much on the sidelines watching what happens and not really in the pot.
Okay. What about you, Young?
So I guess like I don't know, social media is so huge. Like there's so many different communities on social media and there's a lot that you can learn. I guess both good and bad. But in my case, like I'll use Instagram, and like I think over the years I've become more kind of intentional with who I follow. You know, like I'm trying to follow more accounts that are like educational or like or I tend to follow like a few celebrities too, not a whole lot. I think one of the cool things about social media is that it gives people who like wouldn't have a voice, I guess, in mainstream media a platform to like share their ideas. And so I think like social media for me has been a cool place to learn about like different music or like shows or art that like wouldn't be kind of promoted in mainstream media because it doesn't fit like that particular agenda. But in terms of like Twitter, like I'm not similarly, like I'm not a big, I don't tweet, like I'm not, I don't have a big presence on like Twitter, but I think it's a cool place because people can share their opinions. And of course, you have Black Twitter, and like that, Black Twitter is just undefeated. And like, it's cool to like go through and read tweets and hear about people's experiences that are so similar to your own. Like there's so many times when I've like scrolled through Twitter and I'll see a tweet or like an opinion on some like major event, and I'm like, that's like so similar to the way I feel, or that's so similar to an experience that I've had, So you kind of feel this sense of belonging almost. And again, like it's a community where, information and opinions are shared that don't necessarily fit this like Eurocentric like view of the world. So I think that's one of the really cool things about social media. I know it's not a perfect place, but I think it can be a great platform for people who don't typically have a voice or don't typically have clout to like, share their experiences.
And I can tell you, as an old head, because I'm from the pre-social media world, social media has greater positives than negatives, in the sense that many years ago, it was the newspapers and the radio stations and the television stations, which were all owned by the rich. And they provided you with what they thought you wanted to hear. Today, you could have John Q just go on Twitter and say something insightful about something, and it's a million views. And so I think there's some good stuff. What I don't like about Twitter, though, it tends to reward the most extreme on either side, and with views and all that stuff, because it's there. I wanted to